Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's session. We will get started closer to 1 o'clock. I do want to encourage you, if you'd like to introduce yourself, you can do so in the chat if you want, your name, your major, where you went to high school, just to start some connections, start saying hi. And again, we'll get started about 1 o'clock. So welcome. I see a whole bunch of y'all getting joined in. We'll see you about 1 o'clock for our first year Friday session about the 4-year pledge here in a few minutes. Welcome, everybody. I love seeing so many people get logged on. So feel free to introduce yourself in the chat if you would like. We're just waiting on our presenters getting joined in, as well as a couple more students. So again, we'll start closer to 1 o'clock, and we're excited that you're here. If you have any questions ahead of time, please feel free to drop them in the chat, or you're welcome to pop on and unmute if you'd like and ask aloud. We're happy to entertain any questions through today's session, of course, but again, we'll get started closer to So for those of you who are just joining us, I apologize, I'm echoing. If you're just joining us, please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. Love seeing where all y'all are coming from and your majors and all that jazz. So I'm excited that you're here and that you're joining us for today's First Year Friday session about the 4-year pledge. Hopefully you all are definitely going to get signed up and do all that good stuff so we can get you into CSUSB and graduated in 4 years. So keep introducing yourselves. I love it. We'll get started in a couple of minutes just to allow the last group of folks who signed up for today to get logged in. And yeah, so happy Friday. Welcome, welcome. And we'll see you in just a minute. Awesome. I know there are some folks still getting logged on, so if you're just joining, don't worry, we are just getting started. Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. Welcome to our First Year Friday session today, all about the 4-year pledge. So seeing lots of you from all kinds of majors all across the board, which is awesome. I'm glad you're here today to get more information about the 4-year pledge. We have 2 of our academic advisors here, Matt and John, who will share all things to know about the 4-year pledge in light of the application being due next week and everything that you need to know about the program and the ins and outs of all that you need to know. Our session today is being recorded. We will send it to you via email on Monday. So if you want to go back and recap it before you do your application or anything, we'll definitely send it out via email to you so you can catch that as well. I encourage you, again, to keep communicating in the chat. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in as we work through Matt and John's presentation today. We'll either do Q&A throughout or Q&A at the end, depending how they want to navigate all that. I also encourage you, if you'd like to, I invite you to turn on your camera just to start making some connections with faces and names as well as we do that. So again, welcome. My name is Megan. If you have attended your orientation session already, my face is familiar to you, but I serve as the coordinator here in orientation and first year experience at CSUSB, and I'm coordinating this whole First Year Friday series. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get started. So I'm going to turn it over to Matt or John. I'm not sure who's sharing screen today, but it is all yours, my friend.
Awesome. Thank you, Megan. So let's go ahead and get this shared. And welcome everyone for joining today and being here on a Friday afternoon. And before we start, I just want to say thanks to Megan for coordinating all these Friday sessions, as well as all the first year orientation sessions that she has just had to do. Because we think about it, if you remember from your orientation, if you've attended it, Megan talked in the beginning what the on-campus experience would have looked like. So she had to change this on the spot, in a sense, for an online format. So I do want to thank her and her team, the OLs. It's been great so far with this online format. Of course, we do wish that we were on campus for this. So you all have been using the chat so far, but if you can put in the chat and put your thanks to Megan in there and her team, I would really appreciate that, because it's definitely been an undertaking to be able to do, and I think they've done a phenomenal job for that. So let's go ahead and with this session, we got the 4-year graduation pledge session. And my name is Matt Markin. I'm an academic advisor here at Cal State San Bernardino. And thanks for everyone putting those comments in the chat. Appreciate it. I'm also the Graduation Pledge Coordinator for the four-year Graduation Pledge Program. And my colleague will be introducing himself very shortly. But I just want to go ahead and also say that we may not take the whole hour, maybe we will, but join us for this ride. But before we get into the four-year pledge and the requirements, I do want to say if you've already applied for the four-year pledge, you should have received the confirmation email from us that we received your application, and we will be notifying you by mid-August for the next steps. If you haven't applied yet, that's fine. I'm glad that you're here because then you can get some more information about the pledge program. And we do have a deadline that will be coming up, like Megan said, next week. But we also want to take this time to kind of maybe recap what's happened during orientation, maybe some things that we want you to remember from there. Of course, everything we would, but maybe some of the most important things to come out of that. So I'll let my colleague go ahead and introduce himself.
Thank you, Matt, and thank you, Megan, once again for hosting this. We appreciate this, and good afternoon, everyone. As Matt mentioned, my name is John Noriega. I'm one of the academic advisors in the Office of Advising and Academic Services. I'm honored to be here with you all today to discuss a few important information, just to kind of recap a little bit about what was covered in orientation, but also to provide you with some information about how to graduate in 4 years. So I'll be one of the advisors that will be working closely for those of you who are interested in applying in the four-year pledge. But before we do jump in and talk about that information, we wanted to kind of give you some important information about the upcoming virtual College Week sessions. A few of you have probably received some emails already in regards to this. And these are going to be sessions that are going to be going on within the first 2 weeks of August. The email that you received in your student email provided you with the registration link where you can sign up for those sessions. And these sessions are optional, but we do highly encourage you all to attend to check out some of the information that will be presented by the faculty in your department, but also some of the advisors who will get to talk about some of that important information relevant to your major and ways that you can get engaged with your department. So we do encourage you to all to check that out. If you haven't seen that email yet, please be sure to check some of those emails out pretty soon. I think we've emphasized that a lot over orientation. Keep an eye on your student email always, because you're going to get some information as we are leading up to the start of the fall semester. And speaking of important dates too, and of August, as we are approaching the month of August, there are some important dates and deadlines that you want to keep an eye out for. One being that for those of you who are receiving financial aid, the first day of fall 2020 financial aid disbursements will be on August 12th. That's going to be on a Wednesday. If you have not done so already, you might see a to-do list item on your student center that says standard verification for 2020-2021. If you do see that on your to-do list item, please be sure to submit that documentation as soon as possible. If you already submitted it, but you still see it on there, don't panic. Financial aid is working on it. You'll definitely see that taken care of as soon as possible. Other important dates that you see on there, fall fees are due the day after fall financial aid disbursements are done. So it's going to be on August 13th. Then the first day of Saturday fall classes will begin on August 22nd, followed by the first day of the fall classes on August 24th. During the first 2 weeks, I forgot to mention that we are going to be having Q&A Zoom sessions as well. And those Q&A Zoom sessions are going to be open for all of our incoming first-time freshmen who have questions about registration, who have questions about their class schedule. They just kind of want a little bit more reassurance to make sure that they're enrolled in the right classes. So in case if you do want to come and join some of those Q&A Zoom sessions just to speak to a peer or a staff advisor one-on-one, keep an eye out too. We'll be sending out those emails pretty soon to your student email with the link on how you can register for those Q&A Zoom sessions. All right, well, now that we've given you some important information, we want to also share with you who we are. What office do we work for, right? Once again, our office, Advising and Academic Services, we are here to provide you with guidance throughout your undergraduate journey, helping you make informed decisions relevant to your academic, personal, and career goals. And in order for that to happen, we have different services in our office that are dedicated to your success. One of those programs being the Graduation Pledge Program, which we'll talk in a little bit. But we also have the 2-year graduation pledge program for our incoming transfer students. So you'll hear that there's 2 different kinds, the 4-year pledge for the freshmen and then the 2-year pledge for the transfer students as well. Additionally, we also oversee the 1st and 2nd year academic advising, which we'll also talk about in a little bit and how that works. But we are also here to assist students that are undeclared. So students that are still exploring their different majors and still kind of open to seeing like what other options there are. We also provide some of that career and that exploration counseling for those majors. And additionally, we also help out with students that are experiencing academic troubles, whether that is falling below a 2.0, classes that are difficult, challenging. Sometimes that can lead to academic probation. So we work with those students on a one-on-one basis as well. Other services that we have, Coyote Advising Week, where we promote registration for the upcoming semester. Finals Week encouragement, we always have some goodies to give away, candy, snacks, Scantrons, anything to encourage you during finals. And then registration in various forms and petitions. So we do a lot to kind of promote that success for our students. So we do encourage you to utilize us as much as possible with the services that we have in our office. But I do have a question for most of you, and I know that a couple of you, or if not everybody, has already attended orientation. So a lot of information was given within those 3 hours, right? So I want to kind of refresh your mind and joggle your mind a little bit about what was covered during orientation. What were the things that you took away from orientation? For example, how many of you remember how advising works at CSUSB? Or what is a pause report? What is a MyCap? What is schedule planner? Things that are relevant to registration. We're gonna take, maybe I'll say like about 3 minutes right now, just to kind of hear from folks on what they remember from orientation. If you don't mind just writing a message right there in the group chat, what you remember, what you recall from orientation. And maybe that might actually help out some of your other peers as well. Something that they probably didn't hear or they didn't catch. And we can also kind of refresh their mind a little bit about that. So go ahead and we'll kind of give you guys at least 3 minutes just to kind of throw in some of those things that you remember from orientation. We'll go ahead and read some of those comments out loud while we're waiting for those responses. So go ahead and write some of those down. All right, so Johnny did mention, I remember the swap, not drop feature, which, yep, that's a really important one for sure. I think Advisor Michael even mentioned that, if not 3 to 5 times as he was mentioning it. So swap, do not drop. That is a very important one. Good one, Johnny. Roxana, roadmaps for your major. Okay, we'll also talk a little bit about that and too, where you can find that as well. As a matter of fact, I'll include the link to our advising website where you could also find some of those roadmaps on there too. You just gotta hover over the students tab and you'll see that on there. Let's see, what else? We learned how to use the pause report. It helped me figure out what classes I needed to register for. Good one. Isabel, pause is the way to see all required classes for your major. Really good, yep. I learned how to do a pause report via my Coyote portal, find out necessary courses to help me get my degree on time. That you must take 15 units in order to graduate in 4 years. Yep, that is true. 15 units or more depending on the major that you are in. So that's one thing that we'll talk about shortly in a few slides, but definitely the pause report is something that you all kind of have touched on and talked about. I learned Blackboard and Student Center. Good one, Mia. Blackboard, for those of you who haven't really touched on Blackboard, you're gonna see that that is a platform that you're gonna use a lot for the fall semester. And it's gonna be the platform that you're gonna see if not all of your classes on there. So it's a place to access your, your midterms, your finals, your lectures, your weekly assignments. Start trying to get acquainted with that platform. It is on My Coyote. You should see like a little icon with a blackboard with 2 BBs on it, and then you'll be able to kind of check that out from there. All right, awesome. So I appreciate you all sharing those comments. I'm sure that helped out some of your other peers as well in the Zoom session. But let's go ahead and get started. A few of you probably mentioned too about advising, who your advisor is, or who do you go see for help. The way advising works here at the university is within your first 2 years, you are meeting with advising and academic services. And that is the office that we work for. So if you are a freshman or a sophomore student, you would come and see our office for advising. Or if you want to see a faculty advisor, otherwise known as an advisor in your department, a professor, you can also see them for academic advising as well. Now, for those of you who are part of the Educational Opportunity Program, the EOP program, you would be meeting with your EOP counselors as well. So anybody who is a part of the EOP program would be meeting with the EOP counselors, and they can also meet with their faculty advisors as well. So we talked about those first 2 years, freshman and sophomore year, advising in academic services or EOP, as well as a faculty advisor. But in your third and your fourth year, for juniors and seniors, after 60 semester units, you would be meeting with your college major advisors. So these are going to be the folks that are housed in the department of your major or housed in the college of your major. And those are going to be the folks that you'll be working with in your last 2 years, as well as your EOP counselors and your faculty advisors. As you can see on this diagram, faculty advisors are available all 4 years throughout your undergraduate journey. So you want to definitely take advantage of meeting with a faculty advisor and with us, just to ensure you're on the right track with your requirements towards graduation. And let's see, am I going next? Thank you, Matt. And one other thing that we also read in the comments is the PAWS report. So for those of you who don't recall what the PAWS report is, the acronym for that stands for Program Advising Worksheet for Students. That is the automated credit summary that basically outlines the coursework required for graduation at CSUSB. So you want to make sure that you're constantly checking the PAWS report before you register for classes, just to make sure you're taking the classes that do meet major requirements or GE requirements. If you want to take a screenshot of this, feel free to do so. These are the steps on how you can access your PAWS report. You go in by logging in your MyCoyote portal. Then there is a icon that shows like a little report card that says degree progress. And then the third step is you click on PAWS report. Once you are on the PAWS report screen, you'll click on the blue button that says run declared programs, and it will generate a PAWS report for you. Now, the first thing that you will see when you generate a PAWS report will be this visual of the pie chart and a few bars there. So this is kind of a nice visual to kind of give you an idea of what is still unfulfilled, what is in progress, what is complete. As you can see on the little key below, anything that is in green shows that it's been completed. Anything in blue is in progress. Anything in red means that it's unfulfilled. If you've used the MyCap tool, you'll probably see some of those bars turn purple. That's because those are courses that you planned on your MyCap. So you'll probably see that as well. But I do encourage you all to utilize this tool too, because it's gonna give you a countdown of the amount of units that you still need for GEs, the amount of units that you need for your major, and it will also give you the GPA for CSUSB and the overall GPA as well, your major. So keep an eye on this too, because this is kind of going to give you a little bit of a quick glance at what is still missing in terms of degree requirements for graduation. Another important thing that you want to know is that 120 units is a minimum number for the bachelor's degree to graduate at CSUSB. Now, I say minimum because you might actually find yourself taking more than 120 units. Certain majors, such as the science majors, might require 124, maybe 132. You might see yourself over that number, but the minimum just to receive the bachelor's degree is 120. You might still have classes left over in your major. Those will need to be fulfilled in order to be awarded your degree. Next slide, Matt. Awesome. So we talked about the beginning of the PAWS report, and most of you have probably seen this already, but anything that you see that has a red X on your PAWS report are the requirements that are still unfulfilled, meaning that are still missing, right? So you can see at the top that you have university foundations. That is one of those categories on your PAWS report. And then beneath that, you have subcategories that are numbered, such as number 1, foundation seminar, oral communication, written communication. Those are your subcategories. Beneath the subcategories, you're going to notice that there is a number of how many courses you need in that particular area. As you can follow with me right there on number 1, foundation seminar, it still says that you need 1 course from that area, and then it's going to list the options that you can select from. So any one of those classes from that area will fulfill that 1 course requirement in the foundation seminar. Beneath that, you'll also notice under written communication, for example, that there is a grade requirement attached to some of these classes. So they'll normally say that this course must be completed with a C- or better in order to fulfill that requirement. So that's really important that you do keep an eye on those minimum grade requirements, because if you got, let's say, a D or a D- in that class, although the grade is passing for GPA requirements, that doesn't mean that it necessarily fulfilled the requirement on the PAWS report. So keep an eye on some of those grade requirements listed on there. We showed you what looks unfulfilled or what is unfulfilled on your PAWS report, but if you also see on your PAWS report, most of you have already been enrolled in classes or currently enrolled in classes right now. You'll notice that there's a blue box with 3 dots in there. That normally means that that class is in progress for the upcoming term. So for this student in particular, they're taking COM 1020. It's currently registered for the fall 2020 semester. If you've completed maybe like an AP exam, or you took a course at a community college, you might already see some of those credits transferred onto your PAWS report. You might see a green check mark already on your PAWS report that says that the requirement has been fulfilled. So for this student in particular, they've taken AP Spanish, so chances are they got, let's say like a 4 or a 5 on the exam. That fulfilled that particular area, and it gave them credit for the arts and humanities area. So green check mark means that you've already fulfilled the requirement. Blue box means that it's in progress. The purpose of the PAWS report is to convert all of the red X's into green check marks. Think about it like that. And it's just kind of like your checklist of all of the requirements that are still missing for graduation. Thanks. So we talked about the PAWS report, we talked about advising. Now let's talk about registration. These are a few things that you want to keep in mind, because as part of the 4-year pledge, we'll talk about some of the benefits with the program, but you want to also kind of keep these things in mind, that with the registration process, there will be enrollment holds. Enrollment holds such as department advising, where you're going to have to meet with an advisor in the department of your major. There's also the MMR out of compliance hold. MMR meaning the measles, mumps, and rubella. A few of you probably have an MMR grace period right now. The student center, the student health center is giving you the opportunity to turn in some of those immunization records before the start of spring registration. So if by the start of spring registration, those immunization records are not turned in, you might see that hold appear on there. There's also the end sexual violence training, which will appear pretty soon, or even prepayment holds. Any one of these holds will impact enrollment, and it won't allow you to register for classes unless those holds are cleared up. So kind of keep those things in mind. Another thing that you want to keep in mind is enrollment appointments. So for those of you who notice, all of your classes were pre-enrolled for this current fall semester, but for the future, in upcoming future terms, you're going to receive what is known as an enrollment appointment. I know that we tend to confuse the word appointment a lot with associating it by meeting with someone or talking to someone. That might not be the case with this. Enrollment appointments are usually just the day and time of when you register for your classes. So for spring, when registration comes around, you're going to receive a enrollment appointment of the first day and time of when you can register for your classes. So it's important that you clear up those holes before those enrollment appointments. That way you're able to register on the day and time of your registration appointment. And then followed by that, registration is all done through your MyCoyote Student Center. And for those of you who've already kind of used MyCoyote before, you might see these screenshots. They might look a little bit familiar. But when you go to MyCoyote and you click on Student Center, you're going to see the icon that says search at the top. Once you click on that, it's going to go ahead and take you to a page that will allow you to type in the criteria of the classes that you're looking for. So the first thing you always want to make sure is that you're searching the classes in the correct term. So fall 2020 would be listed on there. If it's not defaulted on there, it might be on summer. For those of you who did early start math, it might show up with summer first. Make sure that you do select fall 2020 on there. And then underneath subject, you want to indicate the subject of the course that you're looking for and the course number. These numbers and these abbreviations for the subjects are once again listed in the pause report. They'll show the four-letter abbreviation and also the 4-digit number of the course number. So it's really important that you do note that the numbers are 4 digits. That's where the number would go into. And then level of education, make sure it does say undergraduate. And this is also an important one too. If you are searching for classes and for whatever reason, those classes are not showing up in your search results, you can see that on the bottom left, there's a box that says show open classes only. That box is automatically checked off already whenever you access this page. So if you're looking for a class that's potentially closed or is probably on a wait list at the moment, what you want to do is you want to make sure that you uncheck that box that says show open classes only and then hit the search button all over again. You'll notice all of the classes on the next page are probably either closed or you might see a yellow clock on there that says waitlist. We'll go to the next slide, Matt, if you don't mind. So if you do see that a class is currently open, you'll see that it'll have the green check mark on there. Just make sure that you are checking for the prerequisites to make sure you're eligible to enroll into the class. You might see a red X on there. That means that the class is currently closed. During the first week of courses, if the class is still closed, you might want to reach out to the instructor to see if they can still allow you to add the class. And then lastly, if you do see that yellow clock that I mentioned earlier, that means that the class is currently full. However, there is like a wait list available that you could get in line as soon as the first seat is available in the class. So I do encourage you to check out the opportunities to wait list for a class if you see it's closed. You can always reach out to the instructor too on the first week of classes in case if it's still closed, but keep checking because those classes will eventually open up. We have up until the 24th of August till the first day of classes start. So you want to keep checking constantly as those classes will open or close up, okay? And last but not least, swap, not drop. As one of the students mentioned earlier, this is a really important one. We want to encourage you all to use the swap feature. Do not drop a class. Reason being is because when you do drop a class, you are technically losing the seat in that class the moment that you drop the course. So if you, for whatever reason, are trying to add another class and there's only one seat open in that class, you probably don't want to drop the class that you're enrolled in first and try to get the class that you're trying to add afterwards. You want to make sure that you swap the classes because you can hold your seat in the previous class and then swap that seat with the new class that you're swapping over to. So in order to access that, and feel free to take pictures of this slide, you would want to go into My Coyote and click on the My Academics tab or the tile on there, and then click on the little tile that says swap a class. And then down beneath there, you can see that's going to ask you to swap the class that you're currently enrolled in with a class that you could search up by. You can enter the class number, or it might be in your shopping cart already. You can swap those classes from there. You know, just keep in mind that as these classes are opening up and closing, just keep checking constantly on My Coyote. If you do see a class is closed right now at the moment, leave it in your shopping cart. Just check constantly. That way you're not searching up the classes all over again. Just leave it in the shopping cart and then just keep checking maybe once a day, maybe once a week, just to see if that class eventually opens up. And then you can go ahead and do the swap feature as we just showed you right now. But I think that is all on my end. I'm gonna go ahead and pass the mic over to Matt, who will go ahead and get into the details of the 4-year graduation pledge program.
Before you do that, there was a couple of questions in the chat. I know there's a few questions in there and we'll definitely try to get those answered, but two I want to address right now before we jump into the 4-year pledge that I have for you, John. One is, will prerequisites show on the pause report if I need it for a class?
Good question. So prerequisites should appear in the pause report. Do you mind going back to the slide where the pause report was at, Matt? Let's see. When you are on the pause report, I think the one right before, yeah, thank you. So you'll notice that the list that says select from, I'm looking at Foundation Seminar, for example, Admin 1001, for example. If you click on the course on the pause report, it will bring up like a pop-up screen that will list the title of the course, the number of units, and the description of the class. Within that description, it will read the prerequisites of that class. If it does list any prerequisites, you want to keep an eye on that and make sure that those prerequisites have been met before you do attempt to enroll into the class. You'll also find the prerequisites too in the description of the class when you go into the Student Center. If you look at the details of the class, they'll also appear under like enrollment requirements, and it'll show the prerequisites for that class too. But I think the pause report is a lot easier to find those prerequisites. Just utilize the pause report, or you could utilize the Student Center for prerequisites.
And then one more, what if I'm enrolled in a class and it doesn't list a day or time, but it just says online? What does that mean?
Yeah, good question. So you might notice that classes will say online as like the location and a day and time to be announced, TBA, or it might even say online on there too. So that basically means that the class is probably a fully online section, and there's no days or times attached to that class. So meaning that the instructor probably didn't include like an assigned day or time of when you're going to have like a Zoom lecture, or a particular day and time that you have to be on your computer to listen in on a lecture. Basically that TBA or that fully online section, you're working at your own pace, but you want to keep in mind that the instructor might set certain rules for the class. So you might have to do your assignments at the end of the week. You might have to watch a pre-recorded lecture. You might have to read some of the assigned readings by a certain day. All of that information will be listed in the syllabi when you visit Blackboard once the class is available. But if you do see that it says TBA or to be announced online, there's no days or times associated with that class. So you work according to how your professor wants you to submit those assignments.
So thanks, John. All right, so why did we go through all that if this is a four-year pledge, 401 presentation? Was it so we could just take up time? The answer is no. We wanted to make sure that we gave you kind of the feedback in terms of some of the questions that we've been receiving on our follow-up appointments from the webinar. So we wanted to address some of those, especially because a lot of questions have come about the pause and registration. And we wanted to make sure that we also throw in those upcoming dates, because I think the more, when John and I have talked about this, the more that we show it to you, the more that you become familiar with it, the more you feel confident about starting in the fall term and feel confident, especially using a lot of these online tools like the pause report and the MyCap and the Student Center and registering. So hopefully that was a good overview, and you learned or relearned some of that information, but thank you. And so we're gonna go into the four-year pledge, graduation pledge program requirements. So let's start with who can apply. So all of you here today should be incoming first-year students, also known as first-time freshmen, for the fall 2020 term semester. So if you're a first-year student starting in the fall, then you meet one of the requirements to apply. The other one is to have a declared major. So if you are listed as undeclared, unfortunately, you're not able to apply for the program because we have nothing to go off of in terms of what major you're looking to do and are you currently in the right classes to be able to continue taking the classes within the major that you want to do. The question we get sometimes is like, what if I still plan on declaring a major? Well, you want to make sure you get that major declared and it's processed by the Office of the Registrar before we review applications, which we'll get to the deadline, but I'll mention it here, August 7th, so next Friday. We'll begin reviewing applications after that to determine who meets all the requirements to continue on with trying to get into the program. We're also looking at students commit to finishing it in 4 years or less. One of the questions that we've gotten is, if I plan to finish in less than 4 years, does that mean I can't apply for the four-year pledge? So the way we look at it is, if you're planning to graduate in 4 years or less, you can definitely still apply for the four-year pledge because you're not trying to stay here longer than the 4 years. So if you're trying to finish out in 3 years, 3.5 years, awesome, you can apply. But this also goes with students that might take an extra semester after their 4th year to graduate. Unfortunately, if you're going to be here any longer than 4 years, even if it's one semester, you wouldn't qualify to apply for the 4-year pledge. The other thing we're looking for is that you as a student are going to be completing at least 30 semester units by the end of each academic year. And we'll go more into the unit requirement. And also that throughout your time at Cal State, you're maintaining at least a 3.0 overall GPA for your classes. And a 3.0, just like probably in high school, it's a B average. Now keep in mind, we're on the plus minus system with grades. So we have solid Bs, we have B minuses, B pluses, and that goes with the rest of the grades. So you're looking at a solid B average in your classes at least to have that 3.0 GPA requirement. Okay, so what are the benefits? So why would I want to apply for the 4-year pledge? Well, the main benefit is we give you a higher registration date, and that's a higher registration date at the top of your class level each term, each semester, and also including summer. Now, why is that important? Well, most of you were pre-enrolled in classes for the fall term. Some of you might have gotten all the classes that you needed and you're absolutely fine. Some maybe still need to, maybe got into 3 classes and you're pre-enrolled in 3 classes, so you still need a couple more that you need to try to register for. But every term after this, you're essentially registering on your own. So you're starting at 0 units when you register for the next term. So you need to register for about 4 or 5 classes, depending on how many units it is. And so it can, with registration, the registrar's office will divide up registration by your class level and also a day and time that you register. With the 4-year pledge, you're registering at the top of your class level. So as a freshman, you're registering at the top of the freshman class. You're registering essentially before the rest of the freshmen. Next year, when you reach sophomore status, you'll register at the top of the sophomore class. So then you're registering before the rest of the sophomores and the freshmen. The following year, as a junior, you register at the top of the junior class. So you're registering for the rest of the juniors, sophomores, and freshmen. And then you get the senior status. You register at the top of the senior class. You register for the rest of the seniors, juniors, sophomores, and freshmen. So each year, it gets increasingly easier and easier, and you have a better opportunity to get the classes that you need to be able to graduate within that 4-year time frame. So that's what we're giving you as a benefit for the 4-year pledge. We're not guaranteeing that you get the classes. We're giving you a better opportunity to get those classes. We also offer you additional advising support. So what does that mean? So within your first 2 years, a lot of the communication you're gonna get regarding the 4-year pledge is gonna be coming from John and myself. And actually that's gonna be the whole 4 years that you're here. But you're also gonna be receiving advising information, and you're gonna meet with the office that we work in, which is advising and academic services. When, like John said, in your 3rd and your 4th year, you're usually gonna be meeting with your college advisors, and with the additional advising support, you'll still also get communication from John and myself and have the opportunity to still meet with John and myself as well as your college advisors. And also, I didn't know this would be a big thing, but it is, for the last couple years, the students in our program that graduate also get a grad pledge medallion that you get to have for commencement. And it's a symbolic symbol in terms of, here you have this medallion that you get to wear and show off at graduation and show that you were part of our program and that you graduated within the 4-year time frame. So how many years do you need to graduate from CSUSB? So John, on one of the previous slides, indicated it's 120 units minimum. However, some of the majors, like the science majors, you might need extra units to be able to graduate, but minimum 120 units. So the way that we like to look at it is think 15 to finish. And you might hear that term 15 to finish a lot. And with the 15 to finish, you're essentially taking 15 units per semester. So if you need 120 units to be able to graduate, you need 30 units to complete by the end of each year. 30 times 4 would be the 120. And then if we have 2 semesters, fall semester and spring semester, and you take 15 units each semester, you'll have 30 units done by the end of your first academic year, and then need 60 units done in total by the end of your 2nd year, 90 units done by the end of your 3rd year, and then you should have 120 done by the end of your 4th year. Again, if you're in a major that would require additional classes, you would try to take those extra classes during some of those semesters. So again, the way to think about it is with the fall term, average-wise, we're looking that you're in is 15 units, and spring would also be in 15 units. Now, we do say an average of 15 units, and that is because some of your classes, like sciences, might involve a lab. So most classes at Cal State San Bernardino are 3 units each. Some classes are actually 4 units. So on average, we're looking that you're doing about 15 units a term. So for example, if you did 16 units in the fall, for spring, really it would be 14 units to meet the 30 unit minimum at the end of your first year. The question we also get sometimes is, well, what if I did community college work and transferred that in? What if I did AP exams and I scored high enough on it to receive college credit? So those are some exceptions to where if you're in maybe 14 units or 12 units for the fall, we would allow you to still apply for the program because you already have some additional units from your AP work or from some community college coursework. Now, we do recommend that even if you have the extra units already and some of your requirements already met based off the AP or community college, we still recommend that you try to do 15 units in your first semester, and of course, units that count for requirements for graduation. The reason being is more than likely during your time at Cal State, even if you have extra units coming in, you're still going to be doing 15 units at some point during your time at Cal State. So we'd rather you start out transitioning with doing the 15 units. And then later on, if you have enough requirements met already, you might be able to lessen the amount of units that you take later on during your time at Cal State. It's easier to start off with more and then do less later if you're already ahead versus to do less now and then try to catch up and do more units later, okay? Now, you don't see summer on this screen. You just see the fall and spring semester as examples. Summer we use as a catch-up, as far as a get-ahead term, not a catch-up term. So we don't want you doing 12 units in fall, 12 units at spring, and then catching up on units during the summer. Reason for that is not all classes will be available during the summer. And something we'll get into is if you have classes that are sequence-based, they may only be offered certain times throughout the year and may not be offered in summer. So it's a way to get ahead, especially if you're trying to graduate early, but it's not going to be used in terms of a catch-up term to still remain eligible for our program. So still think the 15 to finish, approximately an average of 15 units per term. So this kind of also sums up what we were just talking about. So each year, if you're doing 15 units each semester, you're completing 30 units by the end of each academic year. And then in total at the bottom there, you'll be one of the students that's graduating. In theory, 120 semester units, again, a little bit more if you're doing certain majors that require more than 120. And again, this is just the units, but the units is made up of your GEs, your majors, and potentially electives if you need it. So earlier on, Megan was asking, what majors are you pursuing? And John and I went through that list and we saw a lot of in the chat. We saw the criminal justice, nursing, biology, math. You know, we've seen a lot of different ones in there. And so it's kind of reiterates the point in terms of each major is going to be different in terms of how many units you need. And that's, again, made up with your general education courses, your major courses, and your elective courses. For the most part, most majors, the general education or GE requirements are the same. There will be certain majors that maybe the GEs are a little bit different in terms of requirements. So that's also why John went over the PAWS report, because that's specific for you. So you always want to reference your PAWS report, especially after you register for classes. Pull up your PAWS report right after that, and you'll see where your requirements that you just registered for, where they're matching up. Now, some majors, again, might require electives. Some majors, all your requirements might be met just with your general education and your major requirements. So roadmaps, and I think there was a question in there, a comment in the chat about roadmaps as well. The roadmaps are a guide and can help in terms of giving you some suggestions in terms of classes to take and when to take them, but also you'll use it in terms of this is what your major is saying that they would want you to take during certain terms. And these are available on our advising website. And John put the link in the chat. And essentially, if you just go to csusb.edu/advising, the roadmaps will be on one of the links on there. And this is a sample roadmap. This example is for communication for the media studies concentration. And on here, you'll see that it's split up between the semesters, and the top two are the freshman year. And then you go to the next one, which is sophomore, and the next one's junior, and the next one is senior. And it gives you some guidelines in terms of classes that are suggested to take to finish out in the 4 years. You'll notice in some of the columns, it'll indicate, like if we go to the top left and we look at year one freshman year and under fall, it lists the GE and what section of the GE that they would recommend you taking, as well as any major requirements. The next column will show the terms that those courses are actually offered. So these are offered in fall and spring. Your major may not list that they're always offered in fall and spring, so you always want to pay attention to that. The next column will indicate if there's a prerequisite needed for that. And then if there is, then there'll be a prerequisites listed under the prereq courses column. And that will help you in terms of if you try to get a class and let's say the roadmap says to take a class in fall and you can't get that class. If it's offered in spring, you might be able to rearrange some of these classes to take in another term, but again, making sure that you're following through if there's any prerequisites needed. So again, this is more of a guide. This is something that you have access to and I would recommend looking at and before you start classes. And this will also help you when you work with your advisor, so we can work on that MyCap together and try to position those classes so you can try to get those during each of the semesters. And again, you'll have a better chance of getting these classes with the 4-year pledge program because you get that higher registration date at the top of your class level. So things to keep in mind though, with all that said, impacted majors. So a question we get to is like, well, what if I'm in a pre-major right now because I'm trying to get into an impacted major? So let's say, for example, pre-nursing or social work. You might show pre-nursing or pre-social work as your major. You're still okay to apply for the 4-year pledge because you have a path of what you're trying to get into. Now, of course, not every impacted major means you do get into it. There might be a separate application process depending on your impacted major. So you want to keep that in mind that the goal is to try to get into that major. And we will, and because of that, you can still apply for the 4-year pledge. We can still give you that higher registration date. But one thing to keep in mind with that is, what if I don't get into that impacted major? Am I dropped from the 4-year pledge program? So the answer, general answer is not necessarily. If you don't get into your impacted major and you end up switching to a different major, if you can still show that you can still finish within the 4-year time frame of when you started, you can still continue on in the 4-year pledge program. If you don't get into your impacted major, you change your major and it shows it's going to take you longer to graduate than the 4 years, then at that point we would drop you from the 4-year pledge program. Now, getting dropped from the program means you're losing out on the higher registration date. Okay, it doesn't mean you're being dismissed from the university. So we want to point that out too. The other thing to keep in mind, and we've kind of talked about it already a lot, is the high unit major. So if you're in a major that requires more than 120 units, you might be taking additional classes during each semester to make up for that, to try to finish out in the 4 years. This also goes for students that are in the liberal studies integrated track. So that is traditionally a 5-year program that you're trying to finish in 4 years, okay? So it might mean that you might be overloading potentially during certain semesters and or doing summer classes. So there are exceptions to that. Also prerequisites, we talked about that too, but it's something we want to kind of drive home is double checking the roadmap, looking on your pause report, clicking on any classes that you need and looking to see if there's any prerequisites needed for those classes. And also majors with sequence classes, so like science and math. A lot of times with sequence classes, they might only be offered once a year, maybe twice, maybe in summer, maybe not. So depending if the classes are not offered each term, you want to make sure that you're getting those classes done when you need to, because otherwise if you're supposed to take a class in spring semester and you don't get it, you might be waiting a whole year to then try to take that class again. And that could mean that that throws off your graduation. So how do you apply? So easy, you apply online. And some of you, again, may have already applied to the 4-year pledge already. If you did, awesome. If you haven't, you would go to our CSUSB advising website. Again, the link is there, csusb.edu/advising. And then you can go to our 4-year pledge page and there's a link there to apply. Application only takes a few minutes to do, so very easy, but you have until next Friday, August 7th to apply. My suggestion though is if you're highly interested in the program now, you feel like you do qualify, go ahead and put that application in now. You don't want to forget to do it and then the deadline passes and then it's too late. So after you apply, what happens? So after you apply, you're going to get a confirmation email, and that confirmation email is a copy of your application. And there's also a blurb in there that talks about that we received your application and then the deadline's August 7th. So after we review applications for eligibility requirements, we will then send a separate application into you by mid-August, if not sooner. And then it's going to say to attend a four-year pledge orientation. So you're not going to attend another webinar. It'll be through Blackboard. And so John kind of referenced Blackboard already. So you kind of work at your own pace. There'll be videos and information on the Blackboard site for the four-year pledge that you'll complete. And then there's a quick, easy quiz for you to do. And if you pass it, then you get into the four-year pledge program. So a couple steps. So apply first, and then if you're eligible, then you'll get the email to then complete the four-year pledge orientation through Blackboard, and then you get into the program. So starting with spring registration, which will be in early November, that's when you'll get start getting the higher registration date for the program. Now, one of the things is, you know, I hear a lot of departments talk about their social media. We have ours too. And I would say right now, I mean, you're probably on your laptop, your iPad, your desktop, your phone's probably next to you. So I would say go ahead and take your phone out. Usually you don't want to be on your phone and doing other things when a presentation's going on, but for this little sliver of time, I would say it's okay. So if you take your phone and pull up your Instagram app, if you have Instagram, which I would assume most of you do, follow us on the CSUSB Grad Pledge IG account. Now, not a shameless plug, this is why. Because a lot of the information we're also going to post as reminders on our IG. So if you forget to try to apply for our program by August 7th, we're going to put some posts next week as reminders. So you'll kind of get that information there, that notification. But also throughout your time at Cal State, we're going to be posting about workshops or pertinent information that's going to help you during your time at Cal State. And also each month, if not more, we do gift card giveaways. Right now, because we're working remote, it's e-gift card giveaways, but we're not giving away you know, little things, it's money that we're giving to you. So, and this can help out. We have Amazon, gas cards, Grubhub, Target, you know, various ones that you might want to use. And so we do have monthly gift card giveaways. So the next one's coming up is August 18th. And so we'll have instructions starting the week before. So follow us on there as well, because we want to be able to give back and engage with you and connect with you. And that's one of the ways is to do giveaways and get some feedback from you as well. So again, follow us at CSUSB Grad Pledge. And if you need to contact us, with that confirmation email that you get, you can reply to that email. It'll usually come to our office. And usually it's going to go to our Grad Pledge email, so gradpledge@csusb.edu, and then we can try to answer your questions there. But I want to say that is it for the presentation part. We're close to the hour, but we can try to also answer some more questions as well that you might have regarding the pledge program.
There were a few questions, Matt. One in particular, a student was asking, right now I am undecided. Can I still choose a major and be able to apply for the four-year pledge? Yeah,
great question. So yeah, so the deadline's August 7th to apply. If you already know what major you're going to be changing to, as long as it's not an impacted major, then you can still submit the application for the four-year pledge, put the new major, the major that you're going to change to as your major on the application, and then make sure you get the change of major form submitted through the Office of the Registrar, which you can submit online through your student center. But yeah, and as long as it's processed by the time you review applications after the deadline, then we'll see that you've changed from undeclared to your new major, and then you would meet that requirement for having the declared major. But great question.
There was a couple questions, 'cause I know there's a whole bunch of nursing majors in this session too. Can you talk about how nursing may be impacted given the timeline with the nursing application and their program?
Yeah, so
I know it's hard.
yeah, so yeah, this will be very general what we're talking about it, but if you're listed as pre-nursing, you can still apply for the four-year pledge program. Because if you end up getting into the nursing program, which we hope you do, I mean, it's great. And the fact that you're in pre-nursing right now, I would congratulate you because not everyone got into pre-nursing. So very good job there, starting out at Cal State already in pre-nursing. But we are going to be working with the nursing department regarding, when they notify students and applying and all of that. So they do have like two different ways in terms of like, if you do get into the program the first time around, then you usually will be able to finish out with their cohort within the 4 years. And if so, then you're still definitely part of the four-year pledge program. If you apply the first time around, you don't get in, you apply the second time, you start the following semester, that usually will take you an extra semester to graduate. So in that case, you wouldn't actually, we would drop you from the four-year pledge program after that. But if right now, as you're in the pre-nursing program, as you're trying to finish out your prerequisites for the program and apply for the nursing program, you can still be in the four-year pledge program to get the higher registration date. But let's say again, let's say you don't get into the nursing program and you decide to change your major at that point, then again, if you can show that you can still finish out within the four-year time frame with your new major, you can still be in the four-year pledge. If you ultimately get into the nursing program and your cohort is scheduled to still finish within the four-year time frame, that too, you'll still be in our four-year pledge program. But again, I do hope that you all get into the nursing program. It's an awesome program and good luck with that. It's gonna be a lot of studying, but we know that you can do it.
Only there's been a couple questions in here too, not necessarily specifically about changing majors, but do you want to really quickly run over what the impacted programs are? And if I'm interested in changing to an impacted program, how do I do that?
Cool. I'll let John answer that since he used to work in the office of the registrar.
Thanks, Matt. The change of major process now is done online. So for non-impacted majors, you are able to go to your My Coyote Student Center. And then on the academics bar, there is a menu option that says change of majors. I'll include a PDF copy of where you can find those step-by-step instructions. But for non-impacted majors, you're able to change your major online. Now for impacted majors, what are those majors? Pre-social work, pre-psychology, pre-criminal justice, kinesiology allied health, and then pre-nursing, right? If you're looking or seeking to go into an impacted major, not including nursing, just the other four that I mentioned earlier, you would have to fulfill the prerequisites first before you can enter into that major. So if you are seeking entry into criminal justice, there are certain GPA requirements such as having like a 2.5, you have to complete your English, your critical thinking, your math, intro to criminal justice. There's a few requirements that you have to take before you can enter into criminal justice. Once you complete those prerequisites, you can go ahead and submit the application to apply for the impacted major. So, so the impacted majors are a little bit different. You do have to kind of stay in a major, either undeclared or a different major in the meantime, and then submit the application once you've completed all those prerequisites for the impacted major. But I'll be sure to, actually Megan already provided the change of major. Thank you, Megan. So the link that's on there will give you the instructions on how you can change your major online, and it also has the information on the impacted majors as well.
And then also, we do get questions sometimes, and we kind of address it as like if I'm, let's say, pre-nursing and then I don't get into the program and change my major. Again, we said if you can change your major and you show that you can still graduate within the 4-year time frame, you can still remain in the program. This also goes with, well, what if I start out with a major and then later on I realize that's not the major I really am interested in and I want to change my major? Can I? Generally speaking, I mean, yes, you can change your major, but as far as being in the 4-year pledge, it kind of goes with the pre-nursing example. If you decide later that you want to change your major, if you end up changing the major, and again, you can still finish out within the 4-year time frame of when you started at Cal State, then you'll be able to still remain in the program. And we get it. We understand that, you know, we kind of expect you to declare a major when you first started, but as you take classes, your interest might change. So there is that flexibility with it in terms of possibly changing your major, because we don't want you to do a major that you don't want to do. So if you do end up deciding that you want to change, again, if you can still show that you're going to still finish within the 4-year time frame, we are more than happy to keep you in the 4-year pledge program.
I have a question I've gotten, not in this session, but from some other students. So I know someone in here had mentioned like, hey, I'm undeclared currently, but I know what I want to declare. But it also takes a little bit of time to process change of major. So if it says I'm undeclared right now, but I apply and I'm in limbo waiting for my change of major to be processed, do I still have a chance of being accepted?
Yeah, it's a great question. And yeah, and things take time. We would hope that everything's like spot on and finalized real quick. And I know our
That'd be great.
yeah, I know our Office of the Registrar does the best they can to get everything done, but they do get, you know, with any office, if they get inundated with a lot of different requests, things kind of take time for that. So after August 7th is the deadline. So we will give you a little bit of time frame. We'll be reviewing applications that following week, and then we'll be notifying students that week as well of those that are eligible. So you might receive an email from us that's, if you're listed, it's still listed as undeclared, that'll say, hi, we received your application. Unfortunately, you're still listed as undeclared. You can't process your application at this time. If you get that email and you've submitted your change of major request, reply back to that email to let us know, hey, I did do my request with the change of major. This is the major that I'm changing to. And then what we'll do is we'll kind of hold it there until we see that change is done. And then we can go ahead and then send you the information to complete the 4-year pledge orientation. So yeah, so very good question, because yeah, like Megan said, things take time, but as long as you're contacting us, because the list that when we process will show you still listed as undeclared. So that's why you'll still get the email from us at that point that says, hey, unfortunately, you're not meeting the declared major requirement. So just reply to that email, and then we'll kind of communicate that way. But we can wait at that point to see that change of major go through, to still have you attend the orientation and complete that, because we would love to still have you as part of the 4-year pledge program.
Cool. Well, I think that just about wraps it up for us. So thank you, Matt and John. I appreciate it and all your insight. I am going to share screen also real quick. So those of you who are still on here, of course, thank you for spending your Friday with us. Hopefully this was insightful and helpful, not just in terms of the 4-year pledge, but also just some good advising insight as well. So thanks to both of you. I do want to remind you, we still have a couple of our first year Friday sessions coming up. So next week is all about mental health resources, especially given what the world has looked like the last few months. We definitely want you to be aware of what resources your tuition already pays for, and the services that we have available here on campus for you. So hopefully you'll join us for that session. And whether or not you use those services in this first semester or first year at all in your first 4 years, again, we want you to be aware of the services that you have available to you on campus, even virtually, and that you can take advantage of them. And then just before classes begin, we have one last session, conveniently with more of our academic advising friends. Any last final questions that you have before fall semester starts? So if you have just anything random, it's a drop-in, very casual Zoom chat that will hopefully answer any of those last burning questions that you have before fall semester begins. And then, as much as Matt shared, follow us on all the channels as well. Hopefully you do a number of those already. We do some swag giveaways and some fun things, much as Matt does on the Grad Pledge accounts. But we encourage you to follow us. We share announcements from campus events, departments, reminders as well as about what's happening, and kind of just general campus stuff. We like to share all the things. So we will also be sending you all, as I said, the session of course is being recorded, so we'll send it to you all on Monday again, so you can go back and reference it as you need. And we'll have a brief survey in there as well, asking for your feedback, not just on this session, but for other sessions that you think would be helpful in the future, whether through fall semester, spring semester, even into your second year. We're looking for your feedback and insight as well. Matt, I did see one more question. Is there a limited amount of spots in the 4-year program?
Very good question. Answer is no. Anyone who is eligible, we want to be able to have you be part of our program. So it's essentially just making sure you get that application in by the deadline. But no, we don't have a specific number that we max out at.
Perfect. Super. The 4-year pledge orientation, Kimberly, I just saw your question. The 4-year pledge orientation is on Blackboard, so it will be accessible after you receive the email. It's not like a timed or scheduled webinar. It's completed as you go, right, Matt?
Yes, absolutely. So we'll have a deadline in terms of, so if you do the orientation through Blackboard, there'll be a deadline when you have to complete everything by, but it won't, yeah, just like Megan said, it's not going to be a webinar format where you have to log in on the day and time of it to complete it.
So super. I think from there, we're going to call this good. Happy Friday, everyone. Again, Matt and John, thank you so much for spending your afternoon with us. I know our students really appreciate it. I am going to put my email address in the chat. So if you have any further questions, please feel free to shoot me an email. It's there for y'all. And then as well as you have the grad pledge is just gradpledge@csusb.edu as well. So you can also email them with any questions. We'll put that one in the chat too. Grad pledge. There you are. Happy afternoon, happy weekend, happy almost August. Classes start in just a couple of weeks, which is wild. But again, as we even said on our orientation session, I know this comes from the advisors as well, is please know how many people and support and services there are on campus to support you all as you all get started here. We know virtually just adds a layer of fun to it and adds an interesting layer. But please know how many people on campus exist to support you all in this process. So please feel free to email any and all of us. We promise that we'll take care of you and get your journey started here as a Coyote. But with that, have a great afternoon, have a great weekend, and take care.